All right, this is your creation. My name is Starseed Bey. How's everyone doing today? This should be a rather interesting video. I always seem to come across this talk quite a bit. I ended up hearing a couple conversations again about it, so I figured I'd go ahead and talk about it again. So basically what we're going to be talking about twin flames, soulmates, and relationships, and how they intertwine. And quite honestly, we really put too much thought into these titles, because that's what they are. They're titles, and a lot of times these titles will overtake the mind and overtake and confuse the heart as well. And really just make it really hard for you to go about in your daily life, to allow life to unfold before your eyes, because a lot of times we lose touch with reality, and we lose touch and feel that our fantasies can become a reality as well. So when you're talking about this, should be a rather interesting conversation. We'll see how it goes. So if this is your first time watching me, I am on Facebook and YouTube. So if you're watching me on YouTube, definitely like, subscribe, share out. I talk about many different things, from spirituality to things that are going on in the world, as well as interesting subjects just like we're talking about today. I am also on Facebook.com/RealTalkStarseedBey. So definitely like the page, share it out. If you have any questions, concerns, that's definitely the page at the moment. The best place to get a hold of me. So check me out there. I'm also on Patreon.com/AdamStarseedBey. So you can check me out there as well. On Patreon. I think I messed that one up. It happens. But yeah. So why am I talking about this subject? Again, like I said earlier, a lot of people really get the wrong idea about this. They really feel, and I had to really do some soul searching on this as well. A lot of people really feel that there is like the one for someone, like literally. And this brings me back to the past with myself. My sister used to always tell me, she's like, Adam, the kind of woman that you want in life is a woman from a video game or a Japanese anime, and you're never ever gonna meet someone like that. And that's what she always told me, and I found that funny, because that was really not what I was looking for. I love my RPG games. I play Final Fantasy all the time and watch anime and stuff. I like the style, like the story, whatever it may be, right? And I always thought, maybe I would meet a Japanese woman. That'd be pretty cool. But I was homeschooled, and I was home all the time. Throughout my teenage years, I was home. I hardly had any friends. I hung out with my cousins, and that was about it. I really had no one. I never had a girlfriend until man, how old was I? 21, I think. I think I was 21 or 22. Is when I met my first true girlfriend, and later to be wife, right? So that literally was it. I met one person, and it turned out to be the way it is now. But before that, I really always had these fantasies of meeting a person, right? Of meeting a girl. Man, I went on so many bike rides. I went on bike rides trying to meet people and trying to fit in and trying to find a meaning or a purpose in life, right? Because I was homeschooled. I wasn't around people. I didn't know how to get out there. Born and raised in a small town. There just ain't a whole lot to do, especially in the 90s. So it was a whole different world back then. But later on, hey, how's it going, Christy? Later on, when I really did finally venture to the world, I was 19, got my first job and everything, and I really started to adventure into the world and learn how the world works, be able to interact and meet people, meet some girls, and things of that nature, right? Well, life really began to unfold and really began to be interesting because the people I was around were into drugs. They had abusive parents, and there was just a lot of things going on. It just wasn't something I was expecting. You know, I didn't realize just how much this town had such a, because there was nothing to do in this town, so a lot of people went into drugs, they went into drinking, and that's really the crowd that you ended up with, and it was hard, right? I think I went to church. Yeah, I think I went to church too, and that's where I started to have Bible study and things like that, hanging out with people and whatnot. But you know, there was never really any kind of relationship that was developing for myself. I mean, I think at the end of the day, we're always trying to find a significant other. You know, we always feel that is what we're supposed to look for, right? And a lot of times people overlook it, or the relationship always ends up being like sexual relations. Like, man, all the people I hung out with, they were just sleeping around all the time, cheating on each other, and it was a nightmare. It was a mess. I mean, you know, literally, it was disgusting in my eyes. You know, I was really between 19 and 21. I was really on a spiritual path with Christ, really strong, really trying to help these people and save people. So I didn't really want to be in some relationship with some girl who was sleeping around. I mean, they may be attractive on the outside, and that's the key thing, is attraction. A lot of times that attraction will distract us, and lead us astray and lead us to people, you know, you really don't want to be around. You know, the thing that always came across my mind was impurity, right? You don't want to you know, dirty your body, right? You know, that was always my mindset, and it went on a deeper level. You know, it went on a spiritual level. So as I was hanging out with these girls, getting pretty lonely, because I was like, man, you know, I really just want a girlfriend, man. I'm ready to be, what, 20, 21, somewhere around there. I was like, you know, I just want a girlfriend. You know, I'd hang out with these girls, I'd flirt with them, and they'd sometimes flirt back with me, or they'd be interested in somebody else. Still learning about life. You know, my people skills was horrible because I wasn't around people in my teenage years. So it was a very learning experience for me. It really was. And my situation, you know, with me being homeschooled back in the 90s and things like that, not everybody has that kind of situation. A lot of people went to high school. A lot of people experienced that stuff, went through girlfriends or boyfriends. You know, I met some people that never had a girlfriend or boyfriend through their school years. So, you know, it can happen too. You know, you can have all these people and just not have the life or the lifestyle that you're wanting or that you're desiring, right? So at the end of the day, you know, I ended up meeting my wife now, where I work at in retail, and you know, I noticed her, she noticed me. I didn't know who she was, and you know, I saw her once and that was it. Didn't really realize who she was till later on. But she would always watch me from afar, I guess, and she was kind of interested in me, and things turned out the way they did. We ended up hanging out. But the kicker with this is, I'm going to get on a personal level with this, is that, you know, I hung out with her. It was interesting, but because I never had a girlfriend, and I think people have probably experienced the same thing. Hey, how's it going, Danny? Thank you all for joining me in the chat room, by the way. People don't really realize that when you've never experienced something, or you're curious about something, you don't know what to do, right? So I'm a 21-year-old hanging out with my wife-to-be, but I was curious about other people. I was curious about, because I was hanging out with other lady friends, right? Because I already had friends I hung out with, I would go to their houses, I would chill, even if I didn't talk, I would just chill. And I had, I had all of these scenarios in my head play out, like, well, this girl is into this stuff, this girl's personality's like this, I'm interested in this girl. I was getting confused, right? Because I want to experience all this stuff. And later on, this kind of explains a lot of why I am the way I am. So, the most stupidest thing, I mean, I'm a guy, and I can definitely say that us guys can make some of the most stupidest decisions that we can ever make. Usually it's ego-based, or it's curiosity, or just foolishness. I mean, really, honestly, us guys can really make some really stupid decisions. So I ended up sitting down in the car with my didn't know then future wife-to-be, and I told her, I was like, this is pretty nice, but I'm interested in some other girls as well. I don't know what to do, and that was that. She was pretty ticked off. I mean, she was mad, and I don't blame her. I'd be mad too. I'd be like, screw you, man. So I ventured on and just trying to figure out things, right? And it was probably some of the worst decisions I made. Still trying to just hang out with people, hung out with some more girls and things like that. It just didn't work out. And somehow or rather, I ended up always bumping into my wife-to-be. I would always bump into her, and she was mad. I mean, every time she saw me, she just didn't like to see me. But she ended up dyeing her hair, and her whole persona seemed to change. And I always thought, man, I wonder if I had something to do with that, and I probably did. But somehow or other, things ended up happening, and I ended up hanging out with her again. And I would always be late to things. I really would. So I ended up having to pick her up somewhere. I don't remember what I had to do, but I was like, man, I think it was like 30 minutes late or a miscommunication or something. She was mad. She was mad. I was like, man, all I do is make her mad, man. So lo and behold, we hung out and things like that, and things just kind of evolved from there, and ended up sticking with her, and just really kind of grew and matured with each other. And I still come across, different circumstances and situations of curiosity just because I didn't experience something. And this is a key thing. When you haven't experienced something and you're curious about something, you want to experience it. You always create these what ifs in your mindset, and like, what if I was with this person or that person? I mean, when you're in the work environment and you're hanging around people, you're always going to meet somebody new. You're always going to meet somebody different. You're always going to have some kind of attraction, and that's something I'm going to talk about here in a little bit. There's always going to be some kind of attraction. And what ends up happening is that's the confusing state, is attraction. And from a guy's standpoint, because I'm a guy, that attraction can be confusing. Because I mean, one of the first things that appeal to you is the look of the person. But for me personally, it wasn't just the look, it was the feeling. I didn't realize this at the time, but I was empathic. I always was empathic, and I didn't realize it. And this really led me into that state of confusion of what attraction was, what appealed to me about these people, right? what appealed to me about them. So, you know, I had my girlfriend, my wife to be, but I always was curious about somebody else. I would meet somebody else. And there was that attraction there. And the first thing that came to mind, I was like, oh man, you know, what's wrong with me? You know, why am I attracted to this person? You know, what's going on? So because, you know, I'm the stupid guy I was, you know, I would adventure in, I would hang out with them and things like that, right? I'm getting on a personal level here, but I think, you know, honesty is key for this stuff. You know, I've talked to my wife about this, so it's nothing new. So, you know, we'd venture into these things trying to figure out what these attractions are. And throughout the years, I struggled with this. I really did, because I didn't know what it was. You know, I didn't know if I was unhappy with the relationship I was in. You know, was I making the right decisions? You know, all of these things, you know, came into play of like, you know, there's so many people that you can meet in the day. You know, there's so many possibilities that you can experience with different people, right? And sometimes you have to make difficult decisions, you know, and that's where I began to really see why people cheated on each other, because it was that attraction. It was that, oh, I'm attracted to that person. You know, I'm going out with somebody, but, you know, I'm interested in this person. So let me test drive them. Basically, that's what it was. Let me test drive them. Let's see how it goes and go from there. And that's how affairs start and things like that. And then the affair doesn't work out. And you're like, okay, well, that's okay. I got my other girlfriend. I'll hang out with her. But then your girlfriend or your wife finds out, breaks it with you, and then you get into that mess. And you're like, why is this happening to me? Why is my life this way? And at the end of the day, those are the choices you made. You gotta, you know, you got to realize, you know, that was a consequence for your actions. That was a consequence for your actions, right? And it's just a learning process, right? You know, sometimes we have to go through those kind of situations to figure things out. And you know, and that's the whole thing about this twin flame thing, is I really feel that with me talking about this, is that people get confused about that. You know, people feel that once they meet someone, they have that bonding moment, you know, they're like, oh man, you know, this is going to last forever. And then something happens, they end up cheating on each other or leaving because they just didn't realize that the person they were with wasn't really being themselves, and then they began to be relaxed, be themselves, and then that person was like, well, you're not really what I thought you were, so I'm going to venture out and find somebody, you know, that I'm more interested or attracted to. And I see this all the time. I really do. And a lot of times, you know, the relationship will build into something and they think, oh, I found my twin flame. I found my soulmate. And then 6 months down the road, they break up, and then they're making videos and crying, going, man, I thought this was my soulmate. You know, there's something wrong. And there's this one guy I watched, and he swore up and down he met his soulmate, his twin flame. And but what he ended up doing was, he was such a controlling person. He wanted things a certain way, and he talked about this. You know, he has a YouTube channel. He talked about things a certain way, and he wanted the situations to be a certain way. And when his lady didn't do things right, his lady didn't do things to what he wanted, he would get mad and say, no, you know, he can't be like that. And vice versa, you know. I didn't really hear the girl side of it, but, you know, it was a controlling thing. You know, people really feel that when there's that twin flame aspect and things don't work out or go their way, some people get obsessed over it. Be like, you are my twin flame. You're going to come back to me. You know, there's nobody else. You're it. You're it, right? Playing that it game. Man, that it game it just goes everywhere too. You're it. Tag you're it. right? Not too sure where I'm going with that, but that's what happens. I went through the same thing too. Like I said, I was talking about, I would be attracted to other people, or before I met my wife, I would have this attraction thing. I wanted to get with them and hang out with them and stuff like that. And I would get obsessed over it. That was the only girl that I would think about, right? Day and night and day. Be like, man, how can I hang out with her? What can I do? My people skills are horrible. I don't know what to talk about, right? It was bad because all these people I was meeting, we had nothing in common, right? I was into video games. I was into Japanese animation. I like to draw, do some writing, right? And these girls I was hanging out with didn't do any of that. They were really people pleasers, hanging out, just partying all the time, drugs and drinking, and that was it, man. They would always bicker about other people and gossiping, and it was a bad crowd to be with. I mean, literally, I just was hanging out with the wrong crowd. But what can I do, right? That was all the people that was around, was that kind of crowd. I didn't meet anybody I could relate with. We had the internet, but it was dial-up internet. But then again, there was really no way of communicating with people online or meeting people online. I'm sure there was people that were interested in the same things as me, but because we're in our houses or hanging out with the wrong crowd, you're never going to meet those kind of people. And I never did, right? Even meeting my wife, she wasn't really interested in what I was interested in, right? I watched wrestling and anime and played games, and it was something different for her because she didn't get anime. She's like, man, what in the world is this anime? People are acting crazy. My mom would always make fun of me watching anime because they'd always have that super exaggerated act, or the over exaggerated faces and things like that. So it was interesting. I always expected her to dump me somewhere down the road, because I was into things. I never had a girlfriend before, and I just didn't know how she would react with things. But it worked out for the best, right? It really did. And after we got married and we had kids and things like that, it's still, the relationship was a constant up and down, right? There was a constant up and down. And I still struggled with the same issues of being attracted to other people. Didn't know what the attraction was, right? Didn't know what that attraction was. And it was hard for me, man. It was hard. And, at the back of my mind, I never wanted to endanger my marriage, or endanger, being separated from my kids, right? Because, I hung out with people who had their parents divorced, or who lost their mom, or who lost their dad, and I saw what it did to the kids, right? It messes people up. You can watch it on TV, you can watch it in real life, and it messes the kids up, because the kids think that it was their fault. They don't understand, and it's just it's a mess, right? So I was at the back of my mind when I always had these kind of attractions. I always had that, like, I don't want to ruin what I have, right? Because I love my wife, sometimes, we get in arguments, and sometimes it's just like, I'm done. I don't want to have these kind of arguments anymore. But it's real life. It's real life, and as I began to evolve spiritually, like I said, I woke up in 2010, began my spiritual journey, learning more about self, trying to heal and reverse my mindset, right? Reverse my mindset, because I still had all of the wants and the desires and the curiosities of life as well. So when I was going through my spiritual journey, I had to learn on how to delete those old programs, and I struggled with that stuff. I really did. And what ended up happening, because I got on the spiritual journey, my wife isn't really into that stuff. She's still the person she is, right? But I changed totally. I was a whole different person. I had a whole different mindset of life. For my 2010 awakening, I was a super depressed person, confused, lost, unhappy, all these things, right? Trying to be a dad and all this stuff, learning about life and everything. So it just was a mess. So when I began that spiritual journey and evolving spiritually, right, going through meditation and things like that, and then watching other people and talking with people, interacting with people online, I was like, man, I really would love to have someone with me that could share in meditation. I really love to have somebody that could share with me, trying to work on the empathic abilities, telepathic abilities, interacting with the beings I was interacting with, trying to figure out if they were real, trying to figure out if they were true, all this stuff. I was wanting to have a partner to experience that, right? And my wife wasn't into it. It wasn't. So I ended up getting to the same situation I was back then, with the curiosity of what would it be like with other people. So I talk with other people online. I get to know other people, things like that. And I never met people in town, thank goodness, because I probably would have went that route. And like I said, this is real talk here. But I always met people online and curious about them and things like that, but they was always far away. And and that's where Christ knew, Christ will take care of you. Like I said, my foundation is Christ. Christ has always been that guideline for me, that inner voice that always has protected me, allowed me to adventure into things, but not too far where it creates a disaster, where it creates just a disaster. I've always been watched out for and cared for, and that's kind of the guiding point for me in knowing that I'm on the right path, right? If I wasn't on the right path, things would go bad. And I've had a couple situations with my marriage where things could have went really bad, but they didn't. And it's just because my wife, she loves me, right? She loves me a lot, and that's what she said. She's told me a couple times. She says that I'm just stupid, and she just doesn't get why she loves me, right? But she always tells me that that there's always that voice saying I need to stay with you, and that's where you see that love. That's where you see that love. You don't want to see, that's what people are looking for. That's when someone loves you, right? And it's hard being on both sides, especially when you're confused, right? You're always trying to fill that void. It'd be great to meet somebody who is in a meditation and spirituality, spiritual development, things like that. But that's just not the situation. That's not the case. And honestly, I don't know if I really would want it to be any different. Because the diversity between me and my wife really kind of balance things out, right? We both do different things. We hang out when we hang out. And that's something I want to get to here in a sec. But, at the end of the day, we still have that time, right? You know, she does her own thing, I do my thing. She respects what I do, gives me that time, and then I give her her time. So, you know, with that being said, you know, if I was in other relationships, unless it was like perfect, and the person did meditation and spiritual practices and things like that, make videos together, and that would be amazing. It would. It's not the path that's been designed for me, right? It's just not designed that way. So this brings into the conclusion, right? To the conclusion that, you know, when you meet somebody, when you are hanging out with them, getting closer with your partner, and things get real and things of that nature, we really have to realize that we're not looking for a girlfriend or looking for a boyfriend. We're not looking for a husband. We're not looking for a wife, because those are titles, right? They're titles. We're looking for a best friend. We're looking for a best friend, a partner that we can share our experiences together, share our emotions together, bonding situations together, and just create a bonding relationship, a bonding friendship. And that took me the longest time to realize that. And once I really began to see that it is just creating a relationship, and you allow those titles to fall away, it really gets real. You know, you realize that when you move in, you know, with your boyfriend or girlfriend, or you get married, you realize you really just have a roommate. You have a roommate. You know, that's being realistic about things. You know, that you have a roommate. They do their own thing. You do your own thing, right? If you have a shared interest, well, great. You know, that's going to be more benefits that's going to be added to that relationship. But that was a conclusion that I came to, is that I was struggling trying to find somebody, right? Because I spent my whole teenage years trying to find the perfect person, right? And like I said, you know, some ways that's what my sister was telling me. And the funny story is, I forgot to tell you that, was that my wife, you know, I wanted to meet somebody from Japan. My wife, my father-in-law was in the military or something like that, and he was stationed in where? Japan. And when my wife was born, she was born in Japan. So go figure on that one. So I still ended up marrying somebody from Japan. So that was kind of interesting as well. And that was kind of a confirmation for me, is that, you know, that it really was meant to be, right? So, you know, things are turned out. Here, let me get a drink of water here. Things turned out the way they were meant to be. These little synchronicities. Again, a word I never heard until recently was synchronicities. So, you know, if I would have known what I know now, right? We always say that all the time. Even Christy Folks was talking about that earlier today. If I would have known that stuff of synchronicities of like, oh, you know, my wife was born in Japan, boom, it was meant to be. And maybe I would have looked at things differently. But it's hard to say. I don't regret anything I've done, right? You know, things could have turned out real bad for some of the choices I made, but it turned out for the better, because I was able to see the struggles that people have with these twin flame aspects, because it's a new age concept, twin flame aspects, the soulmate aspect, and just learning about relationships in general. Because as I was communicating with these people that I was attracted to, right, they had their own boyfriends as well. So that was one sign right there that those are the kind of people I don't want to be around with anyways, because if they would do that, if they would cheat on me and then I was cheating as well, it's just a bad situation. It's the situation that I saw that I didn't want to be involved with in the first place, but I seem to get into those kind of situations out of curiosity, stupidity, right? Things like that. But I was able to learn so much about relationships, so much, years and years of learning about relationships. And I really feel that like I said, my wife really loves me, because if it was another person, she would have left me a long time ago. Is that I learned so much about relationships that it was meant for me to learn about that. Those situations were meant for me to experience, so I can talk about it through these videos with you guys, because this is real stuff. People are still searching for the right somebody, but a lot of times you actually know that person, but because you have the mindset of what you want, you're passing by potential people that is perfect for you, right? Because a lot of times we're looking for those people that have the same interests, the same attractions that you do. But the fun part about being with people who have different interests is that it creates a different experience, right? There's so many times that me and my wife want to watch a movie, but we just don't know what we want to watch. I want to watch, like, say, I want to watch Star Trek, right? My wife does not like Star Trek at all. She likes the newer ones, but she just doesn't like Star Trek in general. And then she'll want to watch something like a comedy or some kind of a romance type movie, and I'm just like, I don't really want to watch that, man. I want to watch some fantasy stuff. So we'll spend like half hour trying to find a movie, and then we'll end up finding something eventually. But it's just, it's because it's different. It really is. So it makes it interesting, right? So it just depends on the situation you're in. With relationships, it's so bizarre. It's bizarre how it works. It's bizarre how attractions work. And that's probably something I should talk about here in just a second. How attractions work and how relationships work. Actually, I'll go ahead and talk about that. So with attraction, what I learned about it is, like I said, for one, was empathic abilities I was not aware of at that time. Was empathic abilities, is that there was something that I was supposed to pay attention to, but because I was a stupid guy and thought the attraction was on a physical level, like a relationship level, and I didn't understand it, didn't know what it meant, but that's what it was. But the interesting thing about the girls that I'd be attracted to, there would be something going on with them, something going on, whether it be their mom was sick, or they were struggling with an abusive boyfriend. I came across that a couple times, abusive boyfriends. They were unhappy, they were uncertain. Let's see, what else was there? One of them, their grandma died and they're really close to them. It was always something. There was something going on in their lives that was of a dramatic nature. And I didn't ever put it together, but I felt that, like I said, because I was confused about the attraction, is I felt that that I was supposed to be there for them, right? I felt I was supposed to be there for them. So when they're going through those kind of traumas, it actually creates a bonding with that person. But again, I was confused about it. If I would have known what I know now, I would have used the healing process with these people and helped them out in that way. But that's something that I learned too, is that all of these people had something dramatic happen in their lives. So I had to dig deeper into that, and I really had to figure out what this attraction stuff was. Like I said, it took me forever to learn what it was. So I had to narrow it down. I spent lots of time meditation, trying to figure out why these people would be attracted, why I was attracted to them. I talked to my wife about it because I'm like, I don't want to get this stuff twisted. I'm like, that I'm trying to figure this stuff out. So what I ended up learning is that I had to get rid of the old programming of attraction and just look at it like, okay, what is the situation with this person? What is going on here, right? Because I would hang out with guys too, and I would always be there would always be something about them too, and I had to look at that too. I was like, all right, so there'd be people I would talk to, and at work or whatever it may be, and there would always be something going on in their lives. So I'm like, all right, so let me get this straight here. So I have guy friends here, and they're going through certain things. They came into my life for a reason. Okay, so let's narrow it down. Why are these girls, why is there an attraction with these girls, and what is going on in their lives, right? What is going on in their lives? What is happening here? So I end up learning about the same thing, going into the past and analyzing the situations I went through. I'm like, all right, so these people had personal problems in the past, and I was confused about that. So let's look at the situation now. What is going on surrounding them? And lo and behold, it was the same thing. And I was like, that's it. That's it. Though that attraction that was confusing me for years and years was the empathic abilities, or actually the Christ within me saying, hey, you need to pay attention to that person. They're going through stuff. They're going to need healing. They're going to need just someone to talk to through that process. So that's what I had to learn. Oh my gosh, man. It was a nightmare, it really was. And I really had to learn more and more about it. And it's a process. And, at the end of the day, with attraction, we have to realize that is what attraction is. It's not just, it's nice to see someone beautiful, right? Let's see someone beautiful and things like that. That's a bonus, right? But it's really the personality of them and the story behind them. At the end of the day, we all are a story. We're a storybook. We're the lead character, right? This is Starseed Bey. I'm the lead character in my book, and I get to choose what I want for the most part, right? Based on choices, will, and intent, right? I get to write my book of life, right? It says in the Bible, right? It talks about, is your name going to be in the book of life or not? And, and that's just realizing in life, is that you are the lead character. And it reminds me of like, oh man, there were some books I read where, I don't remember what kind of books they were. They were like mystery books, and you could choose certain situations, and it would say, all right, well, if you're going to choose this situation, you're going to turn to page 58. But if you choose this situation, you're going to turn to page 28, right? So it gave you a choice, different circumstance, and things like that. And that's what a book of life is that it's living life, and going through those trials and tribulations and things like that, right? basically just I love using this story here is with Jesus in the desert with Satan, or the adversary, is that you're always going to be pestered to give in, to give up, to the adversary. Be like, all right, just settle for this or that. You don't need to go beyond your limitations, right? Just give up. Just turn back, go to a restaurant, or go and swim in a swimming pool or something like that. Get yourself out of the desert. But Satan was like, Christ was like, nope, Satan, get behind me. I'm going to continue this journey, and I want to figure this stuff out for myself with the Creator, or the Most High, or God, as my guide. Not Satan as my guide, but as God, my Father, my Heavenly Father, or Mother, however you want to view it, as my guide, right? As my guide. And that's the same viewpoint with your physical parents, right? Or, like I said, there's different circumstances in your book of life. That's probably something I should talk about in another video. But it goes with this one. So it's the same circumstance, maybe your parents were killed, so you were raised by your aunt and uncle, or raised by your brother-in-law, or your sister-in-law, or your aunt, or somebody, right? Somebody raised you and continue to create in your book of life. And that's the basics. That is the basis of your life, is that you're creating a story. You're living life, you're learning about life, you're growing in life, right? And that's the thing with relationships, is that a lot of times people get so focused on just the man, I'm looking for a girlfriend, or man, I'm looking for a boyfriend. I want to get married and have kids, right? You're creating all these dreams and all these fantasies, and I did the same thing, right? I did the same thing. Always wanted to have a family, and the perfect girl, right? Always wanted that. And at the end of the day, I did end up getting that, right? I got my wife. I got 2 beautiful kids. So I got what I wanted. It didn't turn out the way I planned it to be, but that's why it's called the Book of Life. Because if everything was planned out the way that you want it to be, it wouldn't be a book of life. It wouldn't be creation. It would just be it just would be a dull book. It'd be a dull book because you got everything handed to you. Life is never meant to be handed to you, right? Because we wouldn't learn anything in life if everything was handed to us, right? I was on a personal level through this video, as I showed you guys, the ups and downs and trials that I went through. And I'm not the only one that goes through these trials. There's so many people, especially in the spiritual community, that drop their marriages or their relationships because things aren't going the way that they want, right? They went on a spiritual journey, and their significant other wasn't into that, right? They could be married for 10 years, 15 years. Oh man, I don't even know how long me and my wife have been married. Let's see, we got together 2003, I think. So 2003 to what we are now. So that's a long time, and that would be foolish and stupid to break that up. Having kids and everything, that would be foolish to do so. We created a book of life together, right? And nothing's ever perfect, and it's not supposed to be. I really do feel that that we really have to pay closer attention to the relationships that we are in now, and try to look at ways on how to fix them. You know, sometimes they're unfixable. Sometimes you have to just leave things the way they are, right? You know, I love my wife to be in deep meditation and into the stuff I'm in, but you know, that's not who she is. You know, that's not her story, right? I'm a part of her story, but she's the main character of her story. I'm the main character of my story, with my wife as a character in my story. My kids are characters in my story. And same with my kids. My son has his own story, and my daughter has her own story. And we're characters in their story. So, you know, it's thinking outside the box in a lot of ways with these things. And it's really concepts. And at the end of the day, I got to close this video out here. At the end of the day, we really have to get out of the mindset. It's so frustrating with all of this beautiful stuff that we know, meditation and different breathing techniques and chakras and kundalini, astral traveling and talking with other beings, you know, whether they're ET beings or shadow self beings or whatever it is, right? It's part of the experience, it's part of the book of life. But religion is one subject, you know, that has kind of tarnished what Christ taught us, right? What Christ taught us is to go within ourselves. And Christ taught us, you know, that religion, what it does to people, and how human doctrines will control people more than the actual going within and learning more about the heart and learning how to have a personal relationship with Christ and the Most High, or the Creator, right? And it's the same thing with New Age, is the exact same thing. You know, that they've taken the stuff that the churches demonize and as put it into a different category. So when you talk about meditation and kundalini and chakras and things like that, they leave Christ out. They leave a personal relationship with the Most High out, right? You know, they call it Christ consciousness, or they call it a higher mind, right? So it divides things, it confuses people. And in New Age, the New Age concept is it confuses people because there's no foundation. Religion has a foundation, right? Religion has Christ, religion has a Creator. But with New Age, it's all over the place. They're like, all right, and I've heard so many people say this. They're like, all right, you know, you can connect with the archangels, right? And, you know, they're more fascinated with the archangels than Christ, right? Than Christ. And it's just, it just astonishes me on how that dividing factor is in there. So we have to look at these things of, like, you know, meditation is just a technique that is used to help your life. It's just a technique. It's not something that is miraculous or things like that. Is it life-changing? It is, but it's not what they make it to be. You know, meditation is just a basic form of life. The chakra points is a journey within the self, right? A journey within the self. But New Age people will get so, they try to make it sound, not clicky, but they try and make it sound like it is a over-exaggerated awakening, just over-exaggeration of everything. Everything is over-exaggerated when it's just real simple. It's real simple. You know, I had to spend years through meditation trying to figure all this stuff out. And the same thing with the attraction thing. Twin flames of soulmates. I had to learn about the same thing. Is that they throw this stuff out there. I've watched so many people talk about twin flames, and they have their relationships, and a lot of times it just looks like it's a oh, what's the word, a paper relationship, right? Where it just they seem too nice. They act like everything is all hunky-dory, but at the end of the day, you don't see what's going on behind the scenes. You don't know what's going on behind the scenes. And I really feel that you have to be real with that. You have to be real with that. Real circumstances happen, real situations happen. And that's the thing with New Age too, is that they talk about the attraction, be like, oh, if you're attracted to somebody, okay. And that's what they promote too, is that, oh, well, if you're attracted to somebody, that means you need to leave your wife or your husband and go hang out with the person you're attracted to, because you have more stuff, you relate with them better, right? You relate with them better. I had that kind of mindset too, right? The state of confusion. You're with somebody 10 years, high school sweethearts or whatever it may be, and then you leave them, and maybe your marriage was totally fine, but you just left them because, oh, well, I was attracted to somebody else, so I need to go and venture out into that. And it ends up being the worst thing. I've seen that happen, where people left, and that was the most dumbest mistake they ever made. But in some ways too, though, it ended up working out good for them too. So it just depends. I think it really, at the end of the day, it is your life story, your book of life, full of decisions and choices and possibilities, endless possibilities, right? That's what I learned. I could have chose any person that I was attracted to would have had a different journey. And it could have had the same circumstances, worse circumstances, the best circumstances. It's just the choices that you can have is limitless. It is limitless, and it continues forward. I'm still learning about that. I'm have to learn about consistency, still learning about that, but staying on track with the simple stuff, with the stuff that works, and building upon just the simple things. That's what I've been learning with Truth Seeker, is that synchronicity for me is that you have to stick with what you have, with what works, right? My marriage has worked, right? We've had our ups and downs and things like that, but it works. And why would I want to destroy something that works? Why would I want to adventure out and go through the stuff that I went through? And that's what I always tell my wife. I'm like, if things didn't work out with us, I don't think I'd ever want to go dating ever, because it is a trial. It's a trial to learn about somebody, to get them to open up, because it can take a year or years for that person to fully open up and let them know who they truly are. So it's just, oh my gosh. And then you got to deal with their family and the drama with their family, and it's insane, right? It's insane. That's what I told my wife. I'm like, if something ever happened to you, hopefully not, or you left me or something like that, I don't think I'd ever want to go through a relationship again, because it's an up and down thing. Like I said, it's not that you have a girlfriend or a boyfriend or a husband or a wife. Those are titles. You're with a roommate, and you're creating that best friend, and that's that person that you share a bond with, right? Your king or your queen. And that's it, and that's just a real basic thing. Twin flame thing is just a concept. I want to say it's a make-believe concept that throws people off, that that gets people motivated or get into the mindset of, oh man, you know, I'm going to be able to meet this ultimate person, you know, this person that will be on a pedestal, and they're going to love me for who I am, and they're going to be exactly the way I want them to be. That's the twin flame aspect. That's the soulmate aspect. It really is. But you have to live in the real world. Like I said, sometimes you'll meet the perfect person that does the exact same things as you, and hey, life is good. But sometimes you'll meet the total opposite person, and life will be different. You'll do your own thing, they'll do their thing, you hang out with each other, and that's a different experience too. So we have to look at that from a realistic perception, and that's why I made this video, is to give you guys a realistic perception of things, and don't let this stuff get to your head, right? Let's see, what was that question? Yeah, energetically, like on an energetic level, like energy wise, it's the same thing. Is that when you're hanging out with somebody and you're attracted to somebody, sit down with that person and learn about them. Don't just assume that you're attracted, it was love at first sight and things like that, right? Just sit down and talk with them, learn more about them, learn about their situations, and what they're going through, you know, and see if it evolves into something more, right? Because sometimes the guy will be attracted to the girl, but the girl's attracted to somebody else, or the girl's attracted to you, but the guy likes somebody else. So that's where you also need to realize is that your girlfriend or boyfriend is actually in your life already. You're not paying attention because you're attracted to somebody else, because your empathic abilities are attracting you to somebody else. So you have to just sit down and look at it in that way. Is it complicated? It is, but that's where we need to learn about what we're looking for, you know, not jump the gun, not go, oh, this person is it, you know, you dated them for a week, oh, this is it, this is that person I'm meant to be with, and then 2 months down the road things didn't work out the way you planned it, and then you move on. And then sometimes you end up getting stuck where, man, I knew that was my twin flame, but you have to get out of that. You know, if they leave you, if your partner leaves you, you have to move on. You have to let go. And it's hard. It is really hard, right? So like I said, I was attracted to a lot of people before I met my wife. And they aren't attracted to you, you know, that's it. You know, I mean, you can think and dream about them all day long, but it's not going to do you no good at all. And that's how people get possessed, or what's that word? Yeah, possessed. No, I don't know what that word is. Obsessed. There we go. Obsessed with a person, and then they become a creepy person, and then they start stalking them and things like that too. You don't want to be a creepy person that's chasing a dream that's never going to happen. You're going to end up in jail and all that crap too. So you want to be mature mind, and that's what I've talked about too, is that you have to become mature in mind, body, soul, and spirit. You know, that's what the spiritual journey is all about. It's not just creating that personal bond with Christ and the Creator. You know, that's a bonus benefit, right? But it's getting into that state of mind of making better choices and better decisions in your life. So you're not having to run and try to figure out who you're supposed to be with, right? You know, I think at the end of the day, you know, it could be an instinctual thing, right? But that's kind of getting thrown out the window now, right? because you got guys who like guys and girls who like girls. So that kind of throws the instinct thing out the window, right? Because it's supposed to be a male and a female get together, have babies, and populate the world, right? Instinct. But now we have guy and guy, girl and girl. That goes against nature. So with that, it's an attraction thing. It's an attraction. It can be a lustful attraction. I've talked about that before. Attraction can be lustful, and if it's a lustful attraction, that's just something you don't want to be in. That's just means that you don't know how to love yourself, or they don't know how to love themselves, and they're not mature. They're not mature. You have to mature in life eventually, right? Been through teenagers, young adults, and things like that. Eventually you have to mature in life. And sometimes we make bad choices, but at the end of the day, as long as we're learning from those choices, that's the key thing. That's called maturity on a whole different level. So that's pretty much my take on twin flames. Definitely a personal talk, but I really felt that it needed to be discussed, and that that relationships will always be different. Relationships will always be different. The partner you choose to be with or whatnot is going to have different results. If you try to look at someone else's relationship and go, man, it'd be so nice if my relationship was like their relationship, right? You're dreaming. You're dreaming that you had what somebody else has instead of looking at what you have, right? If you're not happy at all, period, well, you need to find out why you're not happy, and fix the situation. Is it an ego perception? Are you not communicating with the person you're with? What's going on? Take those steps and try to figure out what's going on, right? It just goes on so many levels. It really does. So I'm just kind of rambling on here now. So at the end of the day, don't try to look for a perceived twin flame or soulmate. Look for somebody who, for one, observe the attraction. 2, get to know the person that you're attracted to. And 3, make the conclusion, right? Make the conclusion if it's meant for you just to be with that person at that time during a certain situation of their life. Is that attraction meant to be a friendship, or is that attraction meant to be something more? And you're not going to know if it's something more if you don't create that friendship. And when you do create that friendship, it creates that bonding. And when it creates that bonding, that's when things get more real and more serious and personal with that friendship. Because like I said, a girlfriend or boyfriend is a title. A husband or a wife is a title. But a friend or a best friend is somebody that you bond with. And we create that bonding process and things of that nature. That's when things get real. That's when you get open and honest and you move to the next level. And it's a step-by-step process. It really is. It's not something that happens overnight. So many people sleep with each other because it's that automatic bonding, but they miss out on everything else. Right? It says in the Bible, don't sleep with nobody because it's a sin, right? But energetically, right, on an energetic level, energy level, when you sleep with somebody, when you create that bond, you create that synergy trail, and you're connected to that person. You can sense how they think and feel, and how they felt when they were with other people. It just depends on how deep you are empathically, in that nature. But at the end of the day, that's how the process should go. It starts with an attraction, and you need to learn more about that person. Don't become obsessed with it. Don't start daydreaming. And I think that's just part of daily life as a whole. But if you're interested in somebody, just get to know them, figure out the attraction, if there's something going on in their life, create that friendship. And then if that friendship turns into a bonding situation and you get closer and closer and closer, well, there's your answer. You're meant to be with that person. They're beginning to open up to you. You're opening up to them. And then that's where the relationship process begins. So I'm going to go ahead and end it on that. So love yourself. Keep shining bright. Thank you all for joining me in the chat. Appreciate it. So at the end of the day, like I said, it's just we need to be realistic with things. And everything takes time to build and grow. A business takes time to build and grow. And that's the same thing with a relationship. It takes time to build and grow and mature into something else, whether it be a friendship, a boyfriend, girlfriend, or a husband or wife to be. But again, those are titles. So you just are creating a personal bond, and you're allowing it to grow and mature into something and blossom into something more, right? The birds and the bees, right? Birds and the bees and the flowers and the trees and all that stuff, right? So that's my take on this stuff. Just being real, open, and honest with it. And it's your book of life, man. It's your book of life. Live your life day to day, and just see where life takes you. See how things unfold. See who comes into your life. And cherish those moments when those people come into your life, because at the end of the day, life is all about moments and experiences, because there's no such thing as days, times, weeks, months, whatever it may be. It's the moments that are most precious and cherished in your life, in your book of life. So I'm going to leave it at that. So love yourself. Keep shining bright. I'll talk to y'all later.